Hello, everyone. My name is Jake, and welcome to episode 2 of the Game Maker tutorial from my Rendered World Games YouTube channel. So, what do we have here? We have basically a brand new, almost empty game file. I went ahead and created a sprite for what we're going to do later. And I also went ahead and made just a general room to put our stuff in. So let's open this sprite up first. I'm going to show you what I did. So essentially what I did was I hit edit sprite. I created a new sprite and I set it to 32 by 32. I'll just show you an example. I just did this and I hit OK. But we're going to hit cancel. And I just basically filled in the square with a bunch of black lines and green just to show that that was the player sprite, because green is usually the universal color for the main player. And then what I also did is I went over here and I hit the center button, which put it at the origin to 16 by 16, which will put it in the center. The origin is essentially the place where the exact center of the object is. So whenever you're referring to the X and Y position of the object, it will always be at the origin. Alright, so now let's go into the room. I have the room name you can set to whatever you want. I have the width and height set to this variable if you want to add it to that, but you can pretty much put it to anything you want to. I also checked off enable the use of views and then visible when room starts. These basically means that we're going to be using view 0, and it lets us use it, and it will also be visible when the room starts, so we don't have to activate it on our own. I just have the view in room and port on screen set to their standard values because we're not going to deal with that right now. Oh yeah, back to settings. I forgot about this. The speed I have set to 60. I don't think that would really impact you that much if you didn't pick that up. But the meat of this episode is going to be about our player object. So what I did there is I created a new object. What you can do is you can either right click this and then hit create object, or we can go up here and hit this button right here. We're not going to be using that object right now, but we're going to be using this one. I'm going to rename it to obj underscore player. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit this button here, and it goes through our entire sprite list. I'm going to hit spr underscore player for our sprite. All this seems good. We're not going to be dealing with the depth at the moment. No parents, no masks. So what we're going to do is I'm going to click this add event, and I'm going to go to step. And I'm going to click the step button, and then we're going to go over here to control, and then we're going to go over here to execute code, and I'm just going to drag over a code block here, and now we're in our code editor. So I actually didn't prepare this, but I'm actually going to pause here and bring up something for you to see. Okay, and we're back. So what I did was I opened up this representation of basically what your room is supposed to look like according to a coordinate basis. So in Game Maker, the X and Y positions of players are categorized this way. So what I have for you is a picture to represent the directions of where each X and Y coordinate is going, depending on if you subtract or add to it. So as you can see, the Y coordinates go backwards, essentially upwards. So if you want the player to go up on your screen, you subtract a specific number from its Y coordinate. So, and also if you want your player to go left, you subtract from the X coordinate. When you want your player to go down, you add to your Y coordinate. And if you want your player to go right, you add to their X coordinate. So let's shift that over there. what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you guys how to add in basic player movement on your screen for, let's say, a top-down RPG game or some sort of either isometric, well, maybe not isometric, but sort of like third-person top-down-ish sort of thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to use an if statement. And what an if statement does is anything that is within these two parentheses, if the conditions of anything in between these parentheses are met, it will execute the code within these two brackets here. So what I'm going to type in here is keyboard check ord W. Another parentheses there. Make sure that everything is enclosed with parentheses here. Okay, so I'm going to go over what this means in English. If we are currently pressing W on the keyboard, everything inside here will activate. So what exactly am I going to put into this code block? So since we are pressing W, we usually want W to represent the up position. So going back to our picture here, if we do press W, what do we want to do? We want to essentially subtract a number from our y coordinate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do y minus equals 3. 3 is just an arbitrary number. You can do whatever you want to do. A higher number will obviously stand for a player moving much faster than a lower number, for example, of a 1. A 1 will make your character go really slow. Okay, so now that we have this, I just want to go over what this means. If we hit W on the keyboard, we subtract 3 from our y coordinate. Now let's go back, let's press this check button here, and let's get back to the screen. The step event means that anything that runs within this code block here will be run every single step of our game. We set our speed in our room to equal 60. That means that this code block will run once every step or 60 times every second. Okay? So essentially, this code block will run once every single frame of our game. So I hope that makes it a little bit more easier to understand, instead of just explaining what, the technical terms for steps. Okay, so what we want to do is I'm going to make this really easy. We're just going to copy and paste this 3 more times, and we're going to space it out a little more. And we're going to change this to A, this to S, and this to D. So I'm not going to pull the picture back up because I want you guys to be able to figure this out on your own. So since A is universally significant in that it makes our character go left in most games, what axis are we going to be using for that? We are going to be using the X axis. And since we are going left, which direction did I say that was? We are subtracting numbers from our X position to make ourselves go left. So this is okay. X minus equals 3. We are subtracting 3 from our X coordinate. So if we are pressing A on our keyboard, we are subtracting 3 from our X coordinate. Now let's go over to S. S is down. What happens then? We are adding 3 to our Y coordinate. Let's go over to D. We need to be using the X axis. I don't know why I keep pressing shift for that, but instead of minus, it's essentially the opposite of A. We are going to add 3 to our X coordinate. So let's hit this check button to save it. Hit OK. hit save because we want to save all of that valuable information. We want to go into our room, we want to hit objects, and we want to go over here and hit this button here to add our player object. And we're just going to set it right here in the middle of the room. And that's all you got to do. Hit our save again because that's valuable. We are going to run our game and wait for it to load. And just like that, our player appears on the board. And now our player is able to move around our screen using that code that we've put in our player object. See, it is adding to the x coordinate, subtracting from the x coordinate, adding to the y coordinate, and subtracting from the y coordinate. So that's how that works. And another neat trick, if you guys want this to actually be in a game that you want to make, we're going to add a little bit of code here that says else on each of these brackets, minus this last one here. So what this does is it makes it so that when we are moving, it doesn't let us move diagonally. See, it won't let me move diagonally at all. I am pressing and letting go of certain keys to make it do what I want, but it's not moving diagonally. I am having to move it on a sort of like a pixel by pixel grid. And if that's the effect that you want for your game, you can certainly do that. I simply prefer the diagonal movement more so than this, but it is certainly completely 100% up to you. Alright, so that wraps up the basic player movement for a top-down or third-person game. If you enjoyed my video, please like, comment, and subscribe. And thank you everyone so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next tutorial. Thanks!